Have you ever wondered what sets apart the really successful founders from the ones that keep spinning their wheels, or founders that make it to 6 figures and then take that leap and jump to 7 figures, 8 figures, and beyond? Well, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the 4 key characteristics of entrepreneurs that are able to reach 7 and 8 figures. Welcome to She's Interesting, a podcast about business, money, and well-being for women over 30. I'm your host, Rashel Hariri. I'm an award-winning marketer, consultant, and I'm a startup advisor. On this episode of She's Interesting, we're talking about the 4 characteristics that you need and that you need to work on in order to help your business scale to 7 figures and beyond. Now, let's talk about my experience working with 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure founders. I work with some incredible founders in my consultancy. I've worked with founders who bootstrap their company to millions of ARR. I've worked with founders who are just getting started and raising capital, the whole gamut. And I also have a lot of really incredible and successful people in my network who I've been asking questions and trying to dig into what is it about them that makes them reach 7, 8 figures versus other people who just aren't able to get their business off the ground. People say there's no secret sauce to success, and to a certain extent, I agree with that, but not fully. Because I think there are certain characteristics, there are certain variables that when you line up a set of very high achieving 7, 8 figure founders, you're able to see a consistent pattern of the way they think, the way they act, and their approach to life. And that's what this episode is all about. We are going into 4 of the main characteristics that I've identified from working with 7-figure founders and successful people, interviewing 7-figure founders, and having a bunch of these people in my network and being lucky enough to be able to pull them aside and ask them questions about their success. One thing you may not know is that women across the board have a very difficult time scaling from 6 figures to 7 figures. We figured out how to get to 6 figures. That's not a problem. But when you look at the amount of women who've jumped from 6 figures to 7, that's less than 3% of women. That is such a small amount and percentage. And my goal is to have more of us make it to the 7-figure club. But we actually need to share with each other how we're doing this. It's such a shame when I see these incredible businesses and they just can't figure it out. They just can't quite put in place the right steps to get them to that 7-figure scale. So this episode is all about that. We're going to get straight into it. And just so you know, it's when you're thinking about yourself and the business that you're building, first of all, don't be too hard on yourself, because I know you're tuning into this episode, you want to know what the 4 characteristics are, and don't right away think, okay, I have this one, I don't have this one, I'm doomed. The whole purpose of having this episode is so that we can talk about it as a community and discuss how do we build these characteristics in ourselves if we're not quite there yet. Because oftentimes what's holding us back as founders is literally our mindset, and it could be something that could be resolved through therapy, through cognitive behavior, all sorts of things. Let's focus on the 4 characteristics that are going to help you scale to 7 figures. So the first one on the list, and this is one that I have noticed across the board, whether I am interviewing successful women entrepreneurs, whether I'm talking to people in my network, or listening to stories and researching stories of other founders, across the board, successful entrepreneurs are pragmatic thinkers. Now you might be thinking, what's a pragmatic thinker? How do I become one? Or how do I know that I'm not already thinking pragmatically? Pragmatic thinking literally just means making decisions based on available evidence applied to outcomes. That's it. That is it. We're not making assumptions. We're not getting emotional about things. We're not waiting for our gut instinct to kick in. If you are making decisions as a pragmatic thinker, you have literally created for yourself all the different alternatives, all the potential outcomes, and then you're making a strategic decision based on what's laid out in front of you. Think about it as if you are in court. What are the facts? Put the facts on the table. If you're having an issue with a supplier, let's say, and you're trying to figure out what is the next best move to make, we're not going to get emotional. We're not going to get frustrated, although these things can be very frustrating. So give yourself a moment to just feel those things and very quickly move on and say, okay, what are all my options? What can I put out on the table? I can push back my launch. I can find another supplier. I can go down to the supplier's office myself and check out what the issue is and see if I can fix it. There's a variety of things that can be done. But pragmatic thinkers across the board, they come off as people that are a bit detached from the outcome or from the current situation. And those are the type of people that I love working with. As a consultant, working with pragmatic thinkers versus founders who are overly emotional, because obviously as you're building something, this is your baby. But working with the pragmatic entrepreneurs has taught me a lot. What I've learned from these people is you constantly have to be in a state of problem solving. These people do not get overwhelmed. They take a minute, they take a breath, they go for a walk, they think about all the potential upsides and downsides, the pros and cons of what's happening for their business or in their current situation, and then they make a plan of attack. I had Eva Lau on the podcast in season 1. Make sure to tune into that episode. She talks all about pragmatic thinking, and I think it comes really naturally to a lot of people who are maybe more left-brained. And Eva is an engineer. She's also the co-founder of Two Small Fish Ventures. She and her husband, Alan, created Wattpad, and a couple of years ago sold it for 600 million USD. So when Eva says something, I listen. She was talking a lot about being a pragmatic thinker. And the example I'll give is in her journey while they were building Wattpad, in the early stages, there was a time where they almost lost everything. They almost lost their house. They were going to have to go live with their parents. And in that time, her and Alan needed to decide, hey, are we going to continue to pursue Wattpad? It's not actually making a lot of money. We're not making a lot of movement, but we believe in this idea. So what are we going to do? Are we going to fold and say, this just isn't it, let's go get full-time jobs? Or are we going to continue to push forward with Wattpad? Well, this is where pragmatic thinking comes into place. Eva was a decision maker in this case because her and Alan had an agreement that they would give it 2 years. So this was just shy of the 2-year mark, a few months prior to the 2 years of, well, if you don't make it, we're going to move on to something else. But unfortunately, at that time, that's when they were very close to losing their house. So the way Eva describes what happened is she took a step back. She was thinking about, what are my alternatives? I could sell my house. That's fine. I could go into debt. That's not okay. She wanted to make sure that she did not go in the negative. She was okay with going down to zero because she knew that they're both engineers. They're both highly educated people. They're very smart. They can always build. But when you go into the negatives, it's a lot harder to pull yourself out of that. So as part of her thinking and decision making, she really laid out all the potential possibilities. We can sell the house and move in with our parents. We can stop the business today. We can maybe spend less time on the business and continue to work on other ventures and see where that goes. She laid out all the possibilities, and she also did something that I think is really amazing. She also went inwards and meditated and said prayers, and she used that as a form of confirmation for making her decision to move forward. So regardless, after having this decision-making exercise and really meditating on what she wanted to do, Eva decided, let's give this a few more months. I made a promise that we would let this go for 2 years. We would work on it and we would see what we can achieve. And the most beautiful thing happened because just before they were about to give up and walk away from this incredible idea of Wattpad, the iPhone launched. The iPhone launched, and the App Store in the iPhone is what completely catapulted their business and changed the trajectory of Wattpad. So this is where I'm talking about pragmatic thinking. She didn't quickly run to her emotions and fear and say, oh my God, what are we going to do? We're potentially going to lose the house. We need to figure out what the plan is. We need to shut down this business right away. If it weren't for her pragmatic thinking and the ability for her to detach her emotions from the situation, to think clearly, she might have said, you know what, I'm really nervous. I don't want us to lose our house. I don't want to change the way things are going right now. Let's just close up shop and move on. But you know what? Her decision to carry forward, her ability to understand what she's willing to lose and how far she's willing to go is what enabled them to continue to press forward with Wattpad, to then have the Apple App Store completely change their business, and then years later to be able to sell Wattpad for $600 million. That's what I'm talking about when I say pragmatic thinking. And sometimes this doesn't come easy to some people because your decision-making style is a bit different. You can be indecisive. And that actually takes me to characteristic number 2. So the second characteristic of entrepreneurs that I've interviewed, that I have in my network or that I've worked with, is that they are decisive and they make decisions quickly. The last thing that you want as an entrepreneur is to vacillate on making a decision and taking action. Time is money. And if you are spending your time ruminating and trying to figure out what's the right thing to do, you are wasting money. As an entrepreneur, you need to constantly be moving. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. You got to keep going. There's no time to stop, because when you stop, there's a possibility that your business is going to completely slow down, and that's going to not help you get to 7 figures. If you want to scale from 6 to 7, you got to keep going. You have to make decisions, and you have to be okay with sometimes being wrong, or, many times being wrong. Nothing is perfect in entrepreneurship, and part of the problem that I notice when I'm speaking with founders who haven't made it to 7 figures is their inability to commit. And what I mean by that is, when you have a decision, you're either going to go left or right or up or down or whatever. Maybe you're going to do a twist, but you need to be the one who makes that decision. You have to be so confident with what you're doing that you are quick to action, you are quick to make that decision, and quick to move forward, whether you're a solopreneur or working with a team. Strategy at the end of the day is a series of decision making. You have to know which way you're steering the ship in order for it to get to the land. If you are in the middle of the ocean, this decision-making ocean, and you are not making any moves, the waves are going to take you where they want to take you, and you're not going to get to your destination. It's very similar to when you set up goals as a person. If you don't have any goals, you're going to go wherever the wind blows. And you may not be happy with the outcome, but your decision to be indecisive, you see what I did there? Your decision to be indecisive is actually what's holding you back from scaling and creating a 7-figure business. It's not the avocado toast that you're having. It's not the time you're taking to exercise. It's not the distractions you have in your life. It is very clearly your lack of decision making. Entrepreneurs that I have interviewed have been very clear that they don't know what the outcome is. Nobody knows what the outcome is. There's this fallacy that successful people know what they're doing. In fact, they don't know what they're doing. But what they do know is how to move forward. It's kind of like the theory of relativity. Think about movement and energy. Think about staying stagnant and lack of decision making, and compare that to someone who is constantly firing off decisions, moving forward. There's like this sense of being a very active person and getting results faster because you're constantly moving forward. You constantly have this pull. You're constantly creating this energy versus someone who is staying stagnant. It's almost like they're actually going backwards instead of moving forward. That's the funny thing about entrepreneurship is it really does seem like if you're not making a decision, if you're not moving forward, then you're actually going backwards. And I'm not saying this to create any sense of anxiety or stress for anyone, but the reality is, as the earth is moving, as people are constantly building and creating and moving at such a fast pace, if you're unable to get with the times and to push forward in your business, I hate to say it, but you're actually going backwards. Now let's talk about the third thing. The third thing on this list is conviction and unwavering belief. And I have a few examples from this. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, I should say, we had Connie Lowe on the show. And she was talking about her unwavering belief that herself and her co-founder, Laura, would turn 3 ships into a successful business. As we were digging into the conversation and I asked her about if she had any doubts or, what was it like in the early days when she quit her job to start this business, she straight up said, there was never a doubt in my mind. I had so much belief in myself and in Laura. I knew that we would make this work. I knew that we would build this company. And 3 Ships, which is her clean beauty skincare company, is on track to be 8 figures by the end of this year. So I think it says a lot about that unwavering belief in yourself and understanding that I will make it happen. Honestly, if you're starting a business and you don't fully believe, if you don't have 100% confidence in the business that you're creating or in yourself as the person who's going to steer this ship, why are you doing this? Why would you start anything if you're not 100% committed and can see the end zone that you're going to be successful? That's one thing I notice too. When I work with entrepreneurs, there is no other option. They're doing this because they deeply believe, maybe not even believe, they know that this idea, they know that their vision is going to make an impact. Having an unwavering belief in yourself is not something that we've been taught. It's never something that they teach you in school. It's not a skill or a mindset that most people get from their families. It's just something inherent in yourself where you know that you can do things. You know that you will find the answers. You know that this vision you have is going to make an impact. Think about Jeff Bezos. I know that he is, overplayed and he's one of the wealthiest people in the world. But when Jeff Bezos started, he started Amazon selling books online. It was basically an online library, but you could purchase books. It was an online bookstore. And if he thought, well, this is all I'm going to amount to, or I'm just creating this thing, let's see how it goes, he would not be where he is today. And mind you, there's so many other variables and things involved that have helped him get to the success that he has and early stage money and whatever. But the point is, he actually did it. He took action. He made decisions. He moved forward. He believed that he could, and he did. The 4th characteristic that I have seen among all the entrepreneurs that I've worked with and the entrepreneurs I've had on my show and the entrepreneurs that are in my network is their flexibility and creativity. These 2 things go hand in hand. Think about it like this, about a tree branch. If there's too much wind, if there's too much snow, if there's too much hail, and the tree is not dynamic and strong and flexible in a way, the branches will break. And we don't want that. That's not what we want from an entrepreneur. That's not what we want from the vision maker. And it's definitely not what we want for the person who's leading a company into 7 figures. Anybody who is starting a business knows that shit's going to happen. Things are not going to go your way. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is linear. You're going to have moments where your business is skyrocketing and moments where it feels like you're going to close down tomorrow, but you need to move forward. A really great example of this is Anne Maloom. She is the founder of Solid Core. They are a really, really difficult Pilates studio. They do reformer style Pilates. When Anne first started, I believe she started in 2013, and her vision was to have 100 of these Pilates studios across the states. As she was building up her business, just 3 years into the business, she had an issue with the supplier of the reformer machines. That's Legree, if anyone's done Studio Legree Fitness, I have, they're great. But they had an issue with the reformer machines. When they broke, when there was an issue, it just took too long to get them back into the studio. And obviously, when you're running a studio and a fitness program that requires these machines, if you don't have them in on time, it's going to affect your business. So they ended up, I believe, going into litigation and then separating ways. But she didn't give up. Anne had no idea how to make her own reformer machine. But the point is that she had to do it. She had to step away from Legree because it wasn't working for her business and they were having issues in their partnership. And she had to find out how to do it. Just 3 years into having Solid Core, she hit one of the biggest speed bumps ever. But because she is a problem solver, because she has pragmatic thinking, because she believes in herself and knew that she was going to figure it out, she was able to then find a manufacturer, give back literally all of the reformer machines that she was using in her studios, and keep moving forward. And you know what? In total, she ran her business for 10 years and then she sold it for $88 million. That's the level of conviction, the lack of fear that you need to have when you move forward in business. One thing Anne said that stood out to me a lot is the fact that she in an interview said, I can't create a massive company and expect that things aren't going to go wrong and that they're going to go smoothly all the time. It's funny because I think people have this idea of entrepreneurship that you get started, you make money, then you go buy nice bags and you buy a car and you have vacations and you get to private jets. That's actually not the reality of it. If you want to scale to 6 figures and then scale to 7 figures, you better be prepared to have problems knocking on your door every day. And you need to be able to resolve those problems, action them quickly, and make decisions. Otherwise, your business is going to crash and burn. And that's the reality of being an entrepreneur. I also want to give another example from Isaac Larian, who pretty much is the creator of the Bratz dolls. If you've heard of Isaac's story, he is so resilient. He is so creative. He is so pragmatic. I highly recommend researching his business journey and using that as a motivation. This man moved from Iran to Canada, had like $300, was running out of money. He happened to walk by a cafe in LA and got an opportunity to work there, was getting paid like $1.25 an hour, started to save his money, and he just one step after another, he's currently a multi-billionaire, one step after another was a decision that was made, was a conviction, was something that he believed in. He always believed that he would get his family out of poverty. He always believed that he would be the person to make things happen for himself. His level of creativity is exceptional. He wasn't trained as a salesperson, but obviously being an entrepreneur, he is naturally a salesperson. He was looking to purchase electronics from Sony, and so he had flown out to Tokyo. He, uninvited, went to their office, was asking for the person that he needs to speak to for purchasing. They basically shut him down and said, "You can't see this person. That's not how this works. You can't just show up here." He waited in the lobby. He said, "Don't worry, I will just wait. When this person is free, let them know I'm here. I'm not in a rush. I'm just going to wait." After some time passed, someone came down to see him. He asked them if he could purchase some of their products so that he could sell it in America. They said no. And he said, "Okay, I'll try again." He then left Tokyo, came back to America. Think about the actual timeline of this and how much time he spent. He came back to America and he thought about it. And he said, "Well, I'm going to send them a purchase order and I'm going to show them that I'm ready to pay the money because I'm serious." So he sends it over to them. He gets a call and they say, "Hey, we told you this isn't for sale. We're not selling this product." And he said, "I wanted you to know that I'm serious. You may be saying no, but I'm serious. I want to purchase this from you." They said, "You know what? Fine. We will fill this order for you, but we're only sending you all these products with Japanese writing on the packaging. You got to deal with the rest." Now, some people would say, "Oh shoot, I just spent hundreds and thousands of dollars buying these products. It's going to be so much more expensive now to do the packaging. How do I figure this out? How do I even sell this in this market?" That was not an issue for Isaac. He had so much conviction. He believed in himself. He had learnings from previous failures, and he knew that he could take these products, repackage them, and sell them in America and make money. And that's exactly what he did. Step by step in his journey to getting to the place where he is now, which is like 9, 10 figures. It was all about the conviction he had, the creativity, the ability for him to have unwavering belief in himself and to get up every time somebody said no and shot him down. So on that note, I'm going to end this episode. I hope that this has gotten you fired up. I hope that as a founder, instead of being afraid of problems, instead of worrying about the things that could go wrong, you're focusing on the things that you're going to make right for yourself. That's all you need to do. Have faith in yourself, that unwavering belief. Be creative, have conviction, and also be very pragmatic in your decision making. Lay the facts out in front of you and then make your decision. That's it. We all go through struggles. Even the most successful people, even Elon Musk, even Jeff Bezos, the richest men in the world, they face problems every day. But the thing that makes a difference is how they respond to them. It's probably 90% different than how the average person would. So don't give up and keep going. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to She's Interesting. If you love this episode, if you feel motivated, if you're on fire, rate, review, and subscribe to She's Interesting. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at She's Interesting Podcast. And we also have a newsletter that's launching. It'll be a monthly newsletter where I'm sharing business advice, tips, and highlighting incredible founders to keep you motivated and going. Thank you so much. As always, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one.